to try and win votes. They do this every 2 and 4 years. Take a look. All right, devoid of any ideas to help improve the country, the left in America, completely humiliated after 2016, they are now desperate. Every 2 and 4 years, you have heard me say this often, we've become accustomed to their playbook. Republicans, racist, sexist, homo, you know the whole list, etc. But over the past 21 months, we have seen something even worse than what we usually see. Name calling, identity politics. That just wasn't enough. Instead, we've watched the left for 2 years now vilify this president, any conservative, any Republican, now calling on their supporters to literally create crowds, confront so-called evil opponents that happen to just disagree with them. Hillary Clinton said, you can't be civil with a Republican Party member that wants to destroy American values. And there's Maxine Waters, one of the new leaders of the Democratic Party, urging her supporters, create crowds, go after Republicans where they eat, in grocery stores, department stores, gas stations. Cory Booker urging voters, get up in the faces of people in Congress and the cabinet. Eric Holder, Republicans go low, we kick them. This kind of rhetoric started from the very moment Donald Trump, frankly, came down the escalator, but certainly when he was inaugurated. In fact, on January 31st, right after the president's inaugurated, 2017, failed vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine. Just to remind you, he had this to say about what Democrats need to do in order to reclaim their power. They were looking for it on day one. Watch this.
The way we get outside the bubble is we take advantage of this tremendous public outcry against the administration. What we've got to do is fight in Congress, fight in the courts, fight in the streets, fight online, fight at the ballot box. And now there's the momentum to be able to do this. And we're not afraid of the popular outcry. We're energized by it. And that's going to help us do our job and do it better.
On this program, we're saying this better stop. This is what I'm saying to everybody. This better stop before people, our fellow citizens, some of our elected politicians are severely injured or even killed. In this country, differences should be settled at the ballot box, not on the streets, not with a violent mob, not with fists or intimidation, not with riots in major cities. And as you can see, this is not the approach Democrats are taking. And while words are just words, I understand, I hold people accountable for their own actions. But some people are inspired by these words, sadly. Are we really surprised by what we have been witnessing, what we've all been seeing? Sarah Sanders, her family, kids run out of a restaurant. Secretary Nielsen, same thing. Senator Ted Cruz, his wife Heidi, run out of a restaurant. The Florida Attorney General, Pam Bondi, violently confronted just trying to go watch a movie. Republicans shouted down all over D.C. And reports tonight in Minnesota, 2 local Republican candidates were assaulted by far-left individuals. In one case, while talking to constituents, state representative candidate Shane Mecklin literally was sucker punched. Not only does he have a serious concussion, he will have a 4 to 6 week minimum recovery. He says this is not what he signed up for. No kidding. A few days earlier, while campaigning door-to-door, state representative, Minnesota, Sarah Anderson, she was punched by a person claiming to be an anarchist. And meanwhile, in Nevada, a Democratic operative arrested after violently assaulting GOP campaign manager Kristen Davison after a political event in Vegas. Nevada's Attorney General, now the Republican gubernatorial candidate, called this a new low for politics in Nevada. And last night, Senator Lindsey Graham, he talked about how he was actually spat at during the anti-Kavanaugh protests. Listen, a threatening package was sent to Susan Collins' home with contents they claimed to be ricin, a poison that can kill people. Her staff receiving thousands of coat hangers, other horrible threats via phone. Make no mistakes. What we're seeing here is the left unhinged in America, and they've been unhinged the day that Donald Trump announced, certainly the day he won, and the day he was inaugurated, and they have not stopped. They are hoping that this vitriol, this hatred, where they even get rid of due process and the presumption of innocence, they're hoping this is what carries them into November. And if Democrats take the House, I've been telling you, and it's true, impeachment will be on the table. They just keep begging Maxine Waters, just keep it a secret. Just like the Center for American Progress says, don't talk about ever immigration. It's a losing issue. Just pretend you're somebody you're not. How does that help the American people? What does that do to create jobs? How does that make us more prosperous? How does that make us and our families more safe and secure? We see it every 2 and 4 years. Racist, sexist, you've heard my list. But this time it's even worse. Now the mainstream media literally trying to link President Trump, Fox News, talk radio, everyone they disagree with and hate anyway, with vile atrocities, with an anti-Semitic attack that took place in Pittsburgh. I'm not making it up. We've got the tape.
The terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized up to the right. And we have to start doing something about them.
Yeah, if you guys stop saying mean things about me, I'll stop inciting angry lunatics to kill you. Deal?
Whether the president knew what he was saying, the alleged gunman certainly heard something that resonated.
What Trump is doing is stoking and inciting, for the purposes of political power, the worst amongst us to take action in his name. Anybody who sits there and says that there is not causality between these events and the incitements is as dishonest as they are blind.
I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to draw the lines between these people and the rhetoric that is being parroted by the presidents of the United States right now.
The racists and the anti-Semites think that he's perfectly tolerant of racial violence and anti-Semitic violence.
Yeah, the president, the most pro-Israel president in our lifetime. Ask the prime minister of Israel. Ask Ron Dermer. They're pointing it out. And to blame individuals like this is beyond hateful. We'll get to that later. Also, we have anti-Trump hatred. It's become so unhinged, even the rabbi from the synagogue that was attacked, he's getting hate mail. Why? Because he's meeting the president who's going to mourn the lives of innocent people killed. Take a look.
When I first said that the president was welcome, I've received a lot of email, too numerous to count. I can't keep track. For every email I read, 2 appear as I'm reading that one, so I just cannot keep up with it. I've received many emails that are not happy with those words. The thing that saddens me is those emails also contain hate. And it just continues in this vicious cycle. Hate, promulgating more hate, promulgating more hate. And that's just not the solution. We need to be better than this.
Pretty despicable. We do need to be better than this. The violence has got to stop. The threats, the intimidation have no place in this country. Sadly, many on the left, political differences now just demonize somebody you disagree with. To them, Republicans are evil. The president is evil. Fox News talk radio is evil. It's why you see this kind of rhetoric over the top from liberals like, actor James Cromwell saying this week that there will be, quote, blood in the streets if Democrats don't take back power and destroy the president's agenda. Tried to walk it back. Good luck with that. This kind of rhetoric is not only surprising, it's regular. The left is using the politics of fear, division for decades. They want dirty air and water. Republicans want to take your grandma in a wheelchair and throw.
You allow another cross to burn.
And then you got their plan, which is let's have dirtier air, dirtier water, less people with health insurance.
See, we don't just make this stuff up. This is what they say every 2 and 4 years. And here's my opening monologue from after the midterms, breaking down what the results mean for the president, Republicans, and the country. For months, Democrats, their friends on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, New York Times, Washington Post, they all but were giddy, guaranteeing a huge, massive, enormous blue wave. They predicted that Americans would send a message to President Trump. They acted like Republicans have never been more unpopular, divisive, racist, sexist, and even worse. And guess what? Again, they were completely wrong. That blue wave never happened. Tonight, we do have a split Congress. Democrats picked up seats in the House of Representatives. Republicans, main control, gained seats in the U.S. Senate, increasing their majority. Republicans were also victorious in the most high-profile races, where literally tens and tens of millions of dollars were spent. In Texas, Democrats, almost $100 million, a little less than $100 million, they used to defeat Ted Cruz. It didn't work out. His opponent, Bozo O'Rourke, got support from celebrities, Beyonce, Jimmy Kimmel. Well, that was all a waste because Senator Cruz was reelected last night. In Florida, socialist darling of the left, Mayor Andrew Gillum was bolstered by a visit from Obama, a campaign concert even with Jimmy Buffett. Nearly every single poll predicted a Gillum win. Again, they were wrong. Republican Ron DeSantis supposedly had no chance. He is now the governor-elect of Florida. Good decision, Florida. In the Senate, Republican Rick Scott, he won against Democratic incumbent Bill Nelson. By the way, Nelson's being a bit of a crybaby. He wants to challenge the seat, wants to recount. Scott is up by tens and thousands of votes. That seat is now Rick Scott's. That's Senator Scott from Florida. In Georgia, former President Obama campaign, Oprah Winfrey campaign, even went door to door for Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. Well, pro-Trump Republican Brian Kemp, he is over the 50% mark. That means there will be no runoff in the state of Georgia. Another win. Now, of course, one of these things that they all have in common is President Trump campaigned in all these states. He was in Georgia, Florida, Missouri, Indiana, Tennessee, North Dakota, Texas, where Republicans took home statewide victories. Now, Republicans will pick up what looks like a gain of 3 seats in the U.S. Senate. That is massive, especially when you look at the historical perspective. Democrats will get a net gain of around 35 seats. That gives them control. They needed 23 for the control of the House, but some results are still pending. Now, let me put this in perspective. Republicans actually had what is an amazing, historically speaking, election night. Now, remember, 44 House Republicans retired. That's a massive number. But here is the history. Here are the headwinds that very few people ever talked about. Let's go back. Let's start with 2010, Barack Obama's first midterm. Look at that. Democrats lost in his first midterm 63 seats in the House, 6 seats in the U.S. Senate. That's a total of 69. In 1994, Clinton Democrats lost 52 seats in the House, 8 seats in the Senate. That's a net loss of 60. Even Ronald Reagan, 1982. He'd only been in office 2 years. His first midterm, Republicans lost 26 House seats and gained 0 seats in the Senate. Since 1914, look at this. The president's own party has only picked up seats 3 times during the midterms. 3 times in over 100 years. We knew this going in. And during the same period of time, Donald Trump is only the 3rd president to gain Senate seats while losing seats in the House. And Trump campaigned for senators. He went state to state for those races he could campaign for. He couldn't go out and go to all 435 House districts with 435 different House candidates. That would be physically impossible. Now, keep in mind, during Obama's 8 long years in office, look at this. Democrats lost control of more than 1,000 state and national offices. By the way, he had a pretty bad night last night. Now we're just getting things started. Coming up on the special edition of Hannity,
a Coast Guard facility in Palm Beach County. Mr. Trump praised the Coast Guard for its work during the hurricane since he became president. The president shook hands with all personnel and also posed for pictures. The Vatican Christmas tree arriving outside St. Peter's Basilica today. It was installed in the middle of St. Peter's Square. The tree is from a forest in northern Italy and is slightly more than 75 feet tall. Most pilgrims to St. Peter's were impressed with the giant fir. The lights will be turned on during a ceremony December 7th. The tree will stay where it is until January 13th. I'm Matt Finn. Now back to a Hannity special. And for all your headlines, log on to foxnews.com.
Welcome back to the special edition of Hannity, and here is my opening monologue from the night that Brett Kavanaugh was sworn in as a Supreme Court justice. All right, in 2016, remember then candidate Trump, he promised to reshape the U.S. Supreme Court. He wanted to put on people that were originalists, constitutionalists, those people as judges, not people that legislate from the bench. Well, tonight, President Trump has resoundingly fulfilled yet another campaign promise. Judge Brett Kavanaugh has now officially been sworn in as the newest member of the U.S. Supreme Court, a lifetime appointment, making him now the 2nd judge successfully sent to this bench by the president. And tonight, during his swearing-in ceremony, the president, he congratulated Judge Kavanaugh. He also apologized for the horrific nomination process that we all witnessed for almost 3 straight weeks. Take a look.
On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure. Those who step forward to serve our country deserve a fair and dignified evaluation, not a campaign of political and personal destruction based on lies and deception. What happened to the Kavanaugh family violates every notion of fairness, decency, and due process. Our country, a man or a woman, must always be presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty.
Presumption of innocence. It is core to who we are. Judge Brett Kavanaugh had this to say about his historic nomination. Let's take a look at that.
Article 3 of the Constitution provides that the judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is an institution of law. It is not a partisan or political institution. The justices do not sit on opposite sides of an aisle. We do not caucus in separate rooms. The Supreme Court is a team of 9, and I will always be a team player on the team of 9. I was not appointed to serve one party or one interest, but to serve one nation. America's Constitution and laws protect every person of every belief and every background. Every litigant in the Supreme Court can be assured that I will listen to their arguments with respect and an open mind.
Now, in the face of one of the most despicable, disgusting political hit jobs ever in our history, well, Judge Brett Kavanaugh just made history. Now, from the very beginning, the day that Justice Kennedy announced his retirement, right here on this program, I warned you all of this would happen. Now, tonight we begin, thanks to all of you. This is now the beginning of my 23rd consecutive year right here on the Fox News channel. And over the course of that period, we have chronicled all of this for you. It is the Democratic playbook. We get this all the time. Robert Bork, Clarence Thomas, and now they did it to Justice Kavanaugh and his 2 young girls and his wife and his family. What this is about power. The left will stop at nothing when it comes to blocking a nomination or winning an election. Elected Democrats openly even accusing Kavanaugh of gang rape and drugging teenage girls on a regular, almost weekend basis, calling him evil, comparing him to Bill Cosby, and so much more. And with zero corroborating evidence, 0 corroborating witnesses, and it was based on, nearly 4 decades old claims, and most of them had holes and inconsistencies all over the place. Now, this kind of guilt by accusation was parroted by the so-called news media in this country, including the late-night so-called comedian and comedy shows with the far-left holier-than-thou hosts like Stephen Colbert. Over the weekend, we had a writer for Colbert's late-night show actually tweeting this: "Whatever happens, I'm just glad we ruined Brett Kavanaugh's life." Just for a second, stand back. Think how ugly and despicable, disgusting that is. Well, she later apologized, and she's being sarcastic. Nothing funny. That tweet sums up pretty much what we have witnessed now for far too many elections, far too many confirmations in this country. And unfortunately, it's all they're offering you, the American people, in 29 days. The politics of personal destruction, their motivations, it's clear, it's obvious, it's transparent. They want to regain power, and they do it, try to make conservatives as evil as you possibly can. And as you can imagine, well, they're taking the Kavanaugh, they're not taking the Kavanaugh confirmation tonight very well. Gee, this is a shocker. Take a look.
This is the institutionalization of tribalism on the court.
Women who are shrieking out in agony, saying, "You cannot impose this on us. You can't send us back to the 50s. But Mitch McConnell says, "Yes, I can."
This is a president who says he's for law and order, but not when it comes to sexual assault. That's quite clear.
I think this is, in many ways, a crushing defeat for women and women's rights.
Trump has delivered for these people on the things that they care about most. He has delivered racism for these people. He has delivered misogyny for these people. And now he's delivered the Supreme Court for these people. We're going to see if this if this reign that they now have control over all three branches of government, we're going to see if this reign lasts for 30 days or 2 years or a 1,000-year Reich.
Now, after Senator Susan Collins issued a historic address and bravely cast what was the deciding vote sending Judge Kavanaugh to the bench, well, recently, Senator Collins, her staff, get this, receiving rape threats, death threats, other derogatory calls. An op-ed in the New York Times entitled, "White Women, Come Get Your People," slamming Collins and any woman that thought different than they did and supported Kavanaugh, calling them, quote, gender traitors. Over at NBC News, an op-ed led with the headline, quote, "Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation is the ultimate affirmation of the patriarchy and Republican women let it happen." Next there is known anti-Semite, anti-Sharia law or Sharia law advocate Linda Sarsour. Really? She's helping organize the Women's March and actually introduced Senator Kirsten Gillibrand in New York at an anti-Kavanaugh protest, a woman that tweeted out, quote, that Senator Collins is, quote, a disgrace and her legacy will be that she was a traitor to women and marginalized communities. History will not treat her kindly. Cancel Kavanaugh, hashtag. And coming up on this special edition of Hannity, my opening monologue on President Trump's accomplishments, the ones the mainstream media will never tell for the American people. Now, I highlighted many of the president's successes in one of my opening monologues recently. Let's take a look. Tonight, Democrats spread a message of fear and division like they do every 2 and 4 years. President Trump, a very positive message to deliver today. His agenda, it is working. The evidence is in. The economy is booming like never before. And just today, new numbers. The Labor Department announced big news, a whopping 250,000 more new jobs added in just the month of October, shattering all expectations, even in spite of a hurricane. And unemployment, well, it's at a 49-year low, 3.7%. We now have a record number of Americans employed. And wage growth, look at this number. It is now surging past 3%. That means real money in real people's pockets for the first time since 2009. And overall, nearly 4.5 million jobs have been added since President Trump has been elected. Now, keep in mind, we already have record low unemployment for Hispanic Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, women in the workplace, youth unemployment. We literally have more jobs available, about 1 million, than we actually have on food stamps. We have more people out of poverty than ever before. There are more jobs than we have people for. The country, we have success after success, shattering every record on the books. And record low unemployment in 14 states. Now even some on the left, they can't help but admit the Trump agenda is actually working. We're getting all these election week conversions. Look at this. Former Obama economic advisor touting the jobs numbers, calling the jobs report, quote, everything you could ever want. In a New York op-ed for Fox News, former Clinton advisor Mark Penn, he praised the president for taking a bold stance on major issues. Americans tonight are taking notice 4 days out of an election. It is why the president's approval numbers are continuing to soar, hitting 51% in the latest Rasmussen poll. So 4 days until the important midterm elections. Ask yourself this question. Is President Trump delivering on his promises? Is he keeping his word? Well, he's going all in. You can see it. 11 cities, 11 states, 11 stops in just, 5-6 days. Fighting for every vote, crisscrossing the country at the speed of Trump, all on behalf of the policies that are working for the forgotten men and women that suffered 8 years under Barack Obama. Because of every objective economic measure, you look at it, we are better off. All right, 2 years ago, Americans from all over this country went to the polls. They cast their ballots for Donald J. Trump. Virtually all the political pundits and analysts, so-called journalists, pollsters, they predicted a huge win for Hillary. They were all dead wrong. Americans, the voters, you shocked the world, and ever since, well, the Trump agenda has been paying massive dividends in just 2 short years. And this all comes as President Trump slashed regulations, promises made, promises kept. It comes after he signed the single biggest middle-class tax cut in American history. A promise made, a promise kept. He opened up American energy. Now, literally, we're on a path towards energy independence. Greenlighting the drilling in ANWR, the Keystone Pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline. A promise made, a promise kept. Negotiating new trade deals in Europe, renegotiating NAFTA, pulled us out of the job-killing Paris Accord. Promises made, promises kept in 2 short years. He's led with peace through strength abroad. He has pulled us out of the one-sided, ridiculous insanity of the nuclear deal. We are no longer dropping cargo planes of cash on a tarmac for radical mullahs that chant death to America. Addressing the looming crisis in North Korea. Keeping the promise so many other presidents made, he's the only one to keep. This promise of moving the embassy in Jerusalem, in Israel to Jerusalem. Promises made, promises kept. And despite being out of office for 2 years, this is the joke of all jokes. Watching Obama this weekend, Obama with the worst record of any president in modern history, which I will point out, he's now trying to take credit for Trump's success. Watch this.
So when you hear all this talk about economic miracles right now, remember who started it. Remember who started it.
Let's remind you, the voters, what his actual record is, because it's humiliating and it's embarrassing. 8 years of Obama, 13 million more Americans were on food stamps. 8 million more Americans in poverty, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, the worst recovery since the 40s, the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. Get this, he was the only president in U.S. history never to experience 3% GDP growth in a single year of his presidency. Oh, and the guy that claimed $9 trillion in debt, oh, that's irresponsible and unpatriotic. In 8 years of Obama, he took on more debt than every other president before him combined. That was 2 years ago. Today, President Trump has been making a final pitch to voters in an op-ed on Fox News. And the message is clear. If you want more safety and security and prosperity for the American people from all walks of life, this is about continuing.
Station with turkey and all the trimmings, as well as beef, tenderloin, lamb, and salmon. And there's also Chilean sea bass, red snapper, braised short ribs. Sides included whipped potatoes, sweet potatoes, and traditional stuffing. Gusting winds and bone-chilling temperatures did not stop a holiday tradition, the 92nd annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. New Yorkers and tourists alike braved the frigid temperatures to watch the colorful parade. Giant floats were kept a little closer to the ground because of today's wind. There were floats aplenty, including this one from Sesame Street. I'm Matt Finn. Now back to a Hannity special. You're watching the most powerful name in news, Fox News Channel.
And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. I warned you this could happen. Now that the midterm election is over, we're starting to see what Democrats and their real agenda will be, the ones they were hiding. I broke it down in these opening monologues. Take a look. The modern Democratic Party, the left wing in this country, is in a very sad and frankly alarming state. Night after night, right here on this program, we have documented their hard left turn. And with very few exceptions, the party is now devoid of any moderation, any moderates, no diversity of thought, no ideological differences. Everybody else that thinks differently, they're vilified. They offer no solutions to help the forgotten men and women in this country and solve our problems. Now, they call those who disagree with them evil. They have ginned up hatred and fear all across the country. And now many top Democratic leaders, they're going further, urging supporters to take vengeance against those that dare to disagree with them. This includes the former Attorney General, Eric Holder. Watch this.
Michelle Obama, I love her, you know. She and my wife, like, really tight, which always scares me and Barack. But Michelle always says that, you know, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them. That's what this new Democratic Party is about.
We kick them. Really? This is the top cop under Barack Obama, from hope and change to kick him on the ground? Now, of course, Holder is not alone. That kind of despicable, disgusting rhetoric has been echoed by so many top Democrats. Watch for yourself.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Please don't just come here today and then go home. Go to the Hill today. Get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people.
You know, with rhetoric like that, is it any surprise that Republicans across the country have been literally harassed by angry mobs, left-wing activists? Just a few days ago, we witnessed members of Congress getting shouted down on Capitol Hill, harassed in elevators, stalked in airports, run out of restaurants, and even one instance where a Republican congressman was assaulted inside his own office after a horde of protesters kicked in his door. In Portland, Oregon, far-left activists blocking traffic, assaulting commuters. Meanwhile, you have Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, Homeland Security Secretary Nielsen, Senator Ted Cruz, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, all recent targets of the far-left mob. But over at fake news CNN, their word police, well, they've taken over. Believe it or not, some of their hosts are actually shaming guests for using the proper term, which is mob. Would they want their liberal friends run out of restaurants like Sarah Sanders, Pam Bondi, Secretary Nielsen? Watch this.
When you see people like Ted Cruz getting chased out of restaurants by a mob.
Oh, you're not going to use the mob word here.
Oh, it's totally a mob. It is without a doubt. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's a go watch it. Put up the video.
Mob, stop.
That is mob behavior.
How many times has that happened? Everybody stop. Matt, we already did that. We already said they weren't mobs. No, it's not mob behavior.
Yes,
it's people who are upset and they're angry with the way the country is going and the policies that these people. Will you let me finish, Matt, please, before you jump in? Okay.
While the left-wing media, fake news CNN, they're asking you not to believe your lying eyes. You, the American people, of course, you know better. Your head is not buried in the ground like blaming President Trump, of course. Watch this.
We cannot allow Donald Trump and anybody else to take protest away from us and to deem it to be violent and to try and make us look like a mob. They're trying to change the description of protest and call it a mob. Well, this president is the poster boy for what a mob protester looks like. He is, a matter of fact, he's the one who has been violent in his speech. This country is past due for the kind of protest that we have seen women do in the last few days.
Now, to think that Congresswoman Maxine Waters could be a committee chairman if Democrats take back the House in 27 days, that brand of vitriol, that could have real consequences. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, he issued this urgent warning earlier. Take a look.
When Democrats say get up in their face, they need to realize that there are a lot of unstable people out there. There are people with anger issues. There are people that are prone to violence. They might even live next door to you. You don't know where these people are. But what we shouldn't do is incite people to violence. The problem is rational people might back down. But what's going to happen when the guy comes with a gun to a rally or comes with a knife to a rally? There is going to be an assassination if this doesn't ratchet down. And I think the other side needs to really calm the rhetoric down.
Remember, Senator Paul was attacked in his home. He was a senator whose private information was doxed by far-left activists. Senator Paul's wife, Kelly, now sleeping. They're still planning to wage a never-ending, full-scale investigation into everything. Let me make you a promise tonight. We will be watching every day. Let's see if they do anything for you, we, the people.